If you haven't looked into the looksmaxing movement, brace yourself, because what you're about to see feels almost difficult to accept as real.
From that model, like
Relax. Don't let your cortisol spike, man. That would be low tier. You need to be aura farming, or you would be getting mogged and losing your halo. Have you heard of looksmaxing? Well, looksmaxing is like aura farming, but with your body. And you looksmax to mog the betas. But you can also gesture max on the subs with flat zygos in front of the foids. That is also looksmaxing. These words might seem like someone having a stroke mid-sentence, but they belong to a real subculture that has quietly moved from the darkest corners of the internet into the feet of millions of teenage boys across America. In this 10-minute brief, we examine looksmaxing, what it is, where it came from, what it demands of its followers, and whether the ideology behind it leads somewhere far more dangerous than a chiseled jawline. So, what exactly is looksmaxing? Let's hear the definition from arguably the most famous looksmaxer, the streamer known as Clavicular.
Looksmaxing is the furthest extent that you could take self-improvement, right? So we've seen a lot of, different forms of that over the years, mostly with bodybuilding. I would say was the main one for a while for men, from about 2010 up until 2020. And then it sort of shifted into looksmaxing. That kind of crept into the space from different niche, forums, especially those of PSL.
His followers obsess over things like jawlines, eye shapes, also known as hunter eyes, and overall physique. Inside the looksmaxing movement, young men critique each other's looks and suggest fixes, often involving surgical procedures to, quote, ascend, a common term referring to getting higher in the attractiveness hierarchy. The techniques range from non-invasive to deeply intrusive. The milder end is frequently called softmaxing. It involves practices like skincare, using makeup, or mewing, a practice that involves resting the tongue on the roof of the mouth in order to emphasize cheekbones. After that, we have hardmaxing. Hardmaxing inside the world of looksmaxing involves more extreme methods like the use of steroids, called roidmaxing, starving oneself, called starvemaxing. Within hardmaxing, you can also find bone smashing. It involves inflicting deliberate blunt force trauma to one's own face with hammers or similar objects based on a citation on 19th century Wolff's Law, which holds that bones adapt and reshape in response to mechanical stress. Just to make sure no one will be confused by the abundance of the bewildering lingo, let's do a quick rundown of the looksmaxing slang. Mewing. Mewing is a word referring to the practice of pressing the tongue flat against the roof of the mouth. It supposedly improves the jawline over time via posture, and it was popularized by Dr. John Mew. Hunter eyes. Hunter eyes are, for looksmaxers, the desired male eye shape. Hooded. Minimal upper eyelid exposure. It seeks a predatory look. There are other wild ones like thumb pulling, which means the manual palate expansion, and edge-maxing, meaning withholding orgasm for a testosterone boost, although it's mostly a meme. Beauty is divided into levels, and you have high tier and low tier. If you are low tier, looksmaxers will say it's over, suggesting a fatalist scenario. But if you're lucky enough, you might ascend, which means you improved enough to become more beautiful. If you ascend and develop a halo, which means a sort of multiplier of beauty, you will eventually be able to mog people. Mogging, finally, is the social manifestation of the looksmaxer. Mog stands for male of the group, meaning he's the leader, the alpha male of the group that outshines and outperforms the others. If you're enjoying this video, like it and share it. You can find more content like this in our channel, so don't miss the moment to subscribe. And finally, turn on the notification bell so you find out about our latest video as soon as we drop it. But we have to ask ourselves, where did looksmaxing begin? Looksmaxing was born in online forums in the 2010s before becoming popular on TikTok. However, the most important pioneer of looksmaxing was a guy known as Zyzz, arguably the first fitness influencer. Born a Zyzz Shaversian in the late Soviet Union, Zyzz was a bodybuilder of the early 2000s who amassed online fame by posting videos on YouTube on bodybuilding and overall having fun. Zyzz also gained fame due to his charisma, which earned him a massive following on social media. He also introduced catchphrases and terms that are commonly used in today's online culture. Terms like aesthetics, gains, shredded, and phrases like
"You mind, bro? You mind?"
which means, "Are you admiring my physique?" or even, Haters gonna hate. However, Zyzz died of a heart attack at 22 in a sauna in Bangkok, Thailand. But to understand the full scope of looksmaxing in 2026, look no further than Clavicular, a young man whose life story embodies the profound crisis gripping masculinity today. Born Braden Peters on December 17, 2005 in Hoboken, New Jersey to a businessman father and a stay-at-home mother, Peters navigated a childhood marked by isolation. Clavicular told the New York Times he struggled through high school, grappling with social cues and small talk, and has publicly shared his belief that he's on the autism spectrum, though without a formal diagnosis.
I know you've described yourself as an autist before. Have you been diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum? Okay.
You know, in terms of like social cues and things like that, sometimes small talk, it's not exactly the easiest thing for me.
This vulnerability set the stage for his plunge into online forums, where these spaces twisted his self-perception into an all-consuming fixation on appearance. By his early teens, Peters' obsession escalated dangerously. He began injecting testosterone at age 14, sourcing it online against his parents' pleas, later adding steroids, fat-dissolving compounds, peptides, and even methamphetamine to feel less hungry. Launching on TikTok in October 2021 with dances and trends, Peters pivoted by 2025 to full-throttle looksmaxing content, rating faces, doling out extreme advice, and preaching hardmaxing techniques. By January 2026, The Atlantic's Thomas Chatterton Williams dubbed him the newest star of the movement, while The Guardian's Dave Schilling called him a prominent influencer, earning over $100,000 monthly for kick streams. With 750,000 followers on TikTok, 306,000 followers on Instagram, and 170,000 on Kick, Peters is arguably the de facto leader of looksmaxing. But his ascent hasn't been smooth. In 2025, he live-streamed injecting his 17-year-old friend with Aqualix to reshape her jaw, sparking outrage. On Christmas Eve, footage captured him allegedly hitting a man with his Tesla Cybertruck in Miami, leading to a temporary kick ban, but no charges. Early February brought an arrest in Scottsdale for a forged ID and possession of prescription pills, which he dismissed on stream as straight-up political persecution. According to Clavicular himself, he was expelled from Sacred Heart University in the fall of 2024, just weeks after arriving.
For looksmaxing, essentially, I got caught with steroids in my dorm room and I got kicked out. I only lasted 3 weeks.
He has described his involvement with those online forums as formative. And as of 2026, he lives in Miami. Clavicular and the looksmaxing movement are far from being an isolated phenomenon. We might find them in what Korean-German philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls the agony of eros. Han describes a shift in Western life. He claims we used to live in a society governed by external rules, obligations, duties, moral codes, codes of honor. The guiding voice was, you should. But something changed. Late capitalist culture replaced that voice with a different one, arguably more seductive and more dangerous, saying endlessly, you can. You can always optimize more. You can always improve more. Nothing is ever good enough. The result, Han warns, is that we no longer need external authorities to discipline us. We discipline ourselves. We exploit ourselves. We become, simultaneously, master and slave. Looksmaxing is that dynamic made visible. Looksmaxers treat their own bodies as a continuous business project, a portfolio of capital to be managed and upgraded with ruthless efficiency. Han observed that today, the body, quote, with its display of value has become a commodity, where physical attractiveness represents capital to be increased. He wrote that years ago, and the looksmaxing community reads almost like a footnote proving his point. Han's critique points toward what happens when the logic of the market colonizes areas of life it was never meant to govern: the human body, identity, the search for love and meaning. Han's deeper warning is that when everything becomes a performance metric, people lose the ability to genuinely connect with anyone outside themselves. In the looksmaxing world, other people are mere competitors to be mocked, to be performatively humiliated. The goal is to become the alpha of the room, not by character, not by virtue, not by what you contribute, but by purely the architecture of your face. Not your real face, anyways. Han warns that a narcissistic subject is ultimately unable to clearly distinguish between itself and another person. finding meaning only in its own reflection. The tragedy he identifies is that genuine love requires self-renunciation and a willingness to encounter someone truly different from you, something that looksmaxers reject. These young men have replaced the inexplicable, spontaneous, genuinely human experience of attraction with a tier system of genetic traits, attempting to achieve perfection. And because no human being can achieve this standard of perfection that their own internal algorithm demands, the inevitable destination is despair and depression. In other words, a creeping, suffocating fatalism. Han describes the endpoint of hyper-optimization as bare life, an existence stripped down to pure survivalism, obsessed with health metrics and positivity signals, but completely severed from what he calls the good life, the life that takes risks, embraces vulnerability, and accepts that meaning cannot be optimized into existence. It can only be received. The looksmaxer, seen through Han's book, becomes a kind of undead subject, not capable of dying because he has armored himself against vulnerability, but ultimately not capable of truly living either. Han's study tells us that when a culture abandons transcendent sources of human dignity, the conviction that a person's worth is not manufactured but given, it stops being capable of creating freedom. It creates a different kind of prison, one that young men are building one smashed bone at a time.
But either way, for or against it, let us know what you think. What's your take on looksmaxing? Does it make sense at all? Why are thousands of young men hardmaxing on their looksmaxing? Tell us your opinion. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe to our channel.
But don't leave just yet. What you just watched is one thread of a much larger story. Because looksmaxing is a symptom, and the disease has been spreading for a long time, quietly, steadily, reshaping what we believe beauty is, what's it for, and what happens to a society when it loses its answer to that question. That's exactly what Big Picture Originals set out to investigate in our documentary, The End of Beauty. Over the past 100 years, something fundamental has shifted in how Western culture defines and promotes beauty. This film traces that shift. Through history, through expert interviews, through the testimonies of scholars who have watched it happen in real time, it asks the question that most people sense but few dare to say out loud. Have we lost our reference points? And if we have, what does that cost us? Not just aesthetically, but culturally, morally, in the way we raise our children and the world we're handing them. The End of Beauty connects those dots. From the abandonment of traditional artistic and cultural standards, to the rise of an industry that profits from confusion, to the very real human consequences playing out on the faces of young men with hammers. If this video made you think, that documentary will make you understand.
So click the link in the description or scan the QR code to gain access to The End of Beauty. You're about to get a special offer you won't want to miss.